Welcome to Tales of Blue, where I'm thrilled to be joined by a man who, despite only appearing in the shirt on just 57 occasions for City, his commitment, style and dedication to the cause is appreciated as much now as it was back in 1981. Welcome, Tommy Hutchison. How are you doing, Tommy?
Very well, thanks.
Good stuff. Well, Tommy, I'll start with a little question that's not quite Man City related, but legendary Man City manager Joe Mercer was responsible for taking you to Coventry from Blackpool in 1972. As a Man City supporter, I have to ask you, what are your memories of Joe, who is still, of course, held in such high regard by City fans and football fans in general?
That's a definite one, that he was held in high esteem by everybody. And the beginning was quite strange with Joe Mercer, because I can remember we played Man City when I was at Blackpool, and I spoke to Malcolm Allison after the game. I think we beat him as well. I had a bit of a fallout with Coleman, who ended up at Blackpool as well later on, and Tony Coleman. So he told me that he fancied me. We were having a drink after the game, and Malcolm Allison said that he fancied me, but Joe was the manager at that time, and he said that the only problem was that Joe didn't fancy me that much. And that was it. He says, but if anything happens, we'll see what happens. So it wasn't until I was playing for Blackpool, and obviously I'd spoke to Gordon Milne, who had gone with Joe to Coventry, and sort of in those days, I suppose it was, you'd be tapping me up to see if I would fancy going. And we played Luton at Luton. That was my last game, and I can remember Bob Stockwell coming into me, and we were always given free tickets, 2 free tickets for the games for a family of that. And he said, by the way, I've left a couple of tickets on the gate for Joe Mercer. And I thought, oh no. That was my first thought. But as it happened, I think I scored in the game as well. And then on the Monday, the gaffer got me in and asked if I wanted to go and talk to Gordon Milne.
Job done. So 9 years at Coventry, and a loan spell towards the end of your time at Coventry in America, where it is rumoured John Bond saw you playing before City came calling. How did you first hear about the interest, and how did the move to Man City develop?
Strangely enough, that was another strange one with John Bond, because I went to speak to John Bond when I was at Coventry for Norwich, and I went down, and that was my first ever talks about a move. I knew nothing about money, what to ask for, what contract to ask for. There were no agents in those days. Sure. My agent was a wife, if you know what I mean.
Still is.
Which most people would relate to. Yes. And I went down to speak to him and Ken Brown, and I came back. He says, no, that I'd wanted too much money. And so I said to Gordon Milne, well, tell him just to make me an offer and that'll be it. But what I didn't know was that he had spoke to Ted McDougall, and I'd roomed with Ted McDougall with Scotland, and I didn't get on very well with him. He was a bit grumpy and, you know, put the light out, don't do this, don't do that. And he couldn't have given me a very glowing report. And it came out that he wasn't somebody that he wanted at his club. So that was it. So when he did come in for me, I met him out in America, and I just blanked him. But before that, we were at Coventry. They used to have a soccer ball every year. And what it was, all the top-notch managers from round about, it was always a good band. It was Kenny Ball was the band, and Jimmy Hill was brilliant for getting celebrities to come to it as well. And John Bond was there with his wife, and they had a tombola, and I won a ball which was autographed by the Arsenal Cup winning team. So as you could imagine, by the end of the night, all the proceeds from those dinners used to go to whoever's testimonial was coming up. Okay. So it was a fundraising thing as well. It was very good. It was well run. And of course, by about the back of 12 o'clock, a bit worse for wear, we were ready for going home. So I said to the wife, I'm going over to see him. So as I'm going, she says no, and of course she's dragging me away. And when I went over, I threw him the ball. I says, give that to your son, I says, because he never gets a kick at when I play against him. And I just left it like that and walked out. And seemingly Jan, who's his wife, thought it was hilarious. They loved it. They thought it was brilliant.
Fantastic.
And he did bring it up again when I did come to City. And when he did come in for me at City, I think when I'd come back from America, I was over 34 and I'd been more than 5 years at the club. I was allowed a free transfer. And I still couldn't understand why Coventry would allow me to go to Man City. You know, I know Man City, well, I think they were second bottom of the league or something at the time.
Yeah.
And strangely enough, the day I went up to talk to John Bond, they were playing Tottenham that night. So he says, they want you, after we played Norwich, I think, during on the Saturday, I hadn't played, and Bobby McDonald hadn't played. And after the game in the players' lounge, I said to Kevin, because I'd met him in America, I says, your dad's just gone up there. He must be needing a winger. And of course, Bobby Mack says, yeah, I've been needing a fullback as well. and that's exactly how it was. And on the Monday, Gordon Allen says, do you want to go up and speak to John Bond? But what they didn't know is I'd already agreed a contract with Seattle to go back to Seattle. And I'd promised Alan Hinton, I says, look, I will sign for nobody. He says, look, just go back. I had the rest of the season to go. He says, don't upset anybody. Just go on. If he doesn't play, you can play in the reserves, just go on with it, and that'll be it. Of course, I'd played, I think, one game in the reserves or something like that, and I went in and I says to Gordon, look, I'll go anywhere. I'll go to the second division if I need to. I says, but I'm not playing in the reserve team. But at that time, we did have a lot of good young players coming through, the Mark Hateleys and players like that. And I had to go up and speak to him, but I knew I wasn't going to sign. But I didn't want to spoil Bobby. You know, I thought if the deal's the two of us, then Bobby would miss out. So I went up and spoke to them, and I went in to see him, and he says, right then, how much do you want? I says, wait a minute, we've been here before. I says, I says, these are different. These have got money. And I says, well, he says, you tell me what you want and blah, blah. And he says, just sign the contract. I want you to sign the contract before you go. And if you, I says, look, I need to speak to the wife. No problem. He says, I'll go out the room. You have the phone. And I'm thinking, I can't say that. I need to speak to Ali Hinton, not the wife. And I had to come clean with him. I says, look, Gaffer, I says, I promised Alan Hinton that if anything was going to come up, I would speak to him first. And when I spoke to Ali Hinton, he was brilliant. He says, look, Hutchie, I says, look, Ali, if it'd been anybody else, I says, but a club the size of this, I says, it's something that you play all your career to be able to play for a club of this size. I says, and I can't turn it down. And he wished me all the best, and he was very good with me with it. So when I went in, I said, well, obviously I says to John Bond, I need to speak to Ali Hinton the next day. He says, sign the contract, and if he doesn't agree, I'll tear the contract up. He says, but you're signing it before you go. He says, and if you're not going to sign it, ask for John Benson, he says, because I won't want to speak to you. So I went back, and everything went well, and I had no problems after that.
So obviously it didn't take much persuading for you to join City, but what were your first impressions of the club? I mean, you joined along with Jerry Gow and Bobby McDonald, as you mentioned, arrived to join the side.
Again, travelling up in the car and everything, you're thinking, you know, this is going to be, we're going to have to go on our toes, training and everything, although I was always a good trainer anyway, so was Bobby and Jerry, which I found out, is that, you know, these are like the Tommy Cates and the Ray Ransons and that. They were big names at that time.
Yeah.
And they were only kids. They were only kids, really. And when we went there, and I can remember John Bond asking me, I was a bit disappointed with the training ground. It had a poor training facilities. We had to walk through to the little area next to the co-op.
Yeah, I think it stayed that way right up to the mid-90s.
Yeah, that was the one thing, because the one thing about Coventry City, the facilities were first class, top notch. And that was the one thing I was a bit surprised on. But it was after we'd been there a few weeks, again, just working hard as we'd always done. And I remember John Bond saying to me, "What do you think?" I says, "Well, when I come here, I'm looking at the players and like Dennis Stewart's and top players, Boothie and all that, Big Joe, and I says, I've got better habits than any of them. My ethics to play was and training was the main thing for me. I couldn't stand messing about in training, and they wouldn't mess about that, but for me they weren't sharp enough. And I remember there was one little session where it was just three of us in the line, one in the middle working with a ball, passing it to each end, getting it turned, player passing it again, and the boss came along and stopped us because there were about 6 or 8 groups, about 16 of us in a line, and all in threes. And he stopped the training session and he says, "Look at these." And it was me, Bobby, and Dennis Stewart, who was a fabulous trainer. He says, "Off you go." And we just did it as we've been doing it. He says, "That's how I want the training to be. That's how sharp you need to be to do it. Not, oh, well, what we're going to be doing next, so we're having a five-a-side to finish." And I was very pleased on that side yet, that the upbringing I'd had been with Gordon Milne and Ron Wiley, and obviously Joe, had set me in good stead.
Absolutely. So a City debut soon follows in a 2-1 win at Brighton with a brace from Dennis Stewart in that game. What are your memories of your City debut, Tommy, and how you performed that day?
I could remember when we went ahead, I think it was that I took a free kick. I think Dennis scored with a header. And then for me, the game was finished. We had about 10 minutes to go, something like that. I can't remember. And we'd got won the ball at the back, and Nicky Reid got the ball, won it on the edge of the box, and then went stamping through the middle of the pitch, you know, and gone all the way. And of course, everybody's dragged up the pitch, and he lost possession yet, and I absolutely slaughtered them. And I'm saying to him, "What are you doing? We're winning. Just pass it and keep possession of it," which I tended to do the longer I was there in my early days. Is players like him and Tommy Caton and Ray Ransom, who I got on great with, because Ray knew I would have it anywhere. It wouldn't matter where I had it. If they want to kick me, they can kick me, but they're going to have to kick me to get it.
Yeah, sure.
And it was a case of just taking the sting out of the game. And I think that part of it, they hadn't been using. And I think that I maybe brought something like that into the team that it hadn't had.
Well, absolutely, because City's form improves rapidly following the new arrivals, with John Bond mixed in experienced pros like yourself, with some exciting young players who are at the club, like you've already mentioned, Ray Ranson, Tommy Caton, Nicky Reid and Dave Bennett were all part of that squad. What was your view of the side Bond was starting to put together once you joined, Tommy?
Well, the one thing that was strange is they played me on the right and I'm a left winger. But Paul Power was playing there, and Paul was brilliant at getting up and down, and it worked out well for me just to sit in the right half position, if you like, on the half, and working with Ray Ranson, which I got on great with. And I think we had a good enough combination, and always stressed to him, look, about crossing. And it was the same with Bobby Mack when I played with Bobby Mack on the other side, who fitted in well with Paul Power, because Bobby liked to get forward. And I used to always say to Bob, before the game, it doesn't matter how many, who crosses the ball, it's how many balls we get into the box. Whether it's you or me, it doesn't matter who it is. And if you look back, is that the more balls we get into the box, the better services for Kevin Reeves Dennis Stewart. So that's how it worked, really. And I tended to get more balls in, being right-footed, probably from deeper than before. But then again, Ray Ranson, who had a great engine, could get up and down very quick, and it suited both of us great.
But it's safe to say your style of play and commitment to the cause made you an instant fans' favourite of City then and still very much now. How do you remember the Main Road faithful during your early days at the club, the reception you were given?
From day one, as soon as you come over, especially if we started on the kick-back side, if I was on the far side, it was tremendous. It was, you were a foot taller when you come in, and when you're playing, you just can't understand why you would have to. I can remember having a chat with John Bond about it. He says, the one thing I can't understand with clubs like this is how you've got to actually get discipline into them. How there's no discipline. For me, that I was brought up with Bob Stokoe and Ron Wiley and Gordon Milne. So I knew if the work wasn't done right, then they'd be on your back. And that's how I played as I trained, and I trained as I played.
And that's why you would have got that rapport straight away. The Kippax would have seen that. That's how it was. Absolutely. So your first City goals arrived just after Christmas 1980 with a brace in a 4-0 win over Wolves at Main Road. What do you call of those two strikes? And was it relief at the time to get off the mark in a City shirt?
It's never been anything that has bothered me about scoring goals. I can't remember any of the two goals. I can't remember any of the two goals because I honestly got more pleasure out of creating goals for other people and working back and tying things together than I was really scoring goals, because I just wasn't a goal scorer.
That's fair enough.
And don't get me wrong, I did work at it. You know, there's some players like you watch somebody like Dennis Stewart and you think, even in training, if you're playing forwards against defence or something like that, you're thinking, why does the ball always land at his feet? Yeah. Kevin Reeves, why? And you thought you get in those positions, you think, it still hasn't come to me. It's just something that you've either got it, I think, or you don't have it.
Absolutely. So how are you enjoying the move to City, and how were your family settled into life into Manchester, Tommy? Did you move the family up to Manchester during the early days?
Yes, we moved up. Moved up to Wimslow, and again the club were brilliant. They had directors on the board who would help us with purchasing houses and what have you, to make sure that everything was spot on. You had never had it, and we never had anything they could do for us was done. You know, what you would expect at a big club.
Yeah, for sure. So FA Cup semi-final day arrives against Ipswich Town, following some great results along the way in the cup run, a side then managed by the late, great Bobby Robson, and they were firm favourites for the cup that season. How confident do you remember the City team were going into that fixture, and what are your memories of that day at Villa Park?
I think the gaffer's tactics were spot on. We tried to nullify the two Dutch lads because they were the engine room of them. Mm-hmm. And we did it for the biggest part of the game, restricting them to very few chances and what have you. And then Paul Power came up with a lovely free kick at the end, and I can remember sitting in the dressing room and looking at Bobby Martin thinking, like I was, 34 then, this is taking a long time.
So I was going to say to you, as you brought the free kick up, Paul Power's free kick, which we all know obviously won the game, did Tommy Hutchison not fancy that late free kick?
I was never on free kicks, although I would take all the corners and free kicks from wide, but I would never take an actual free kick for a strike at goal. For me, it was set up perfect for Paul's left foot.
So 24 league appearances during that 80-81 campaign, first division football guaranteed, a FA Cup final to look forward to. How pleased were you on a personal level with how the move had gone?
Oh, tremendous. The only little hiccup, obviously, we couldn't play in the cup, the League Cup.
Of course, we reached the semi-finals in that, didn't we, that season?
We reached the semi-final. Should have actually won that, because I think Kevin Reeves had a penalty claim or a goal off, chopped off. But the good thing about that was I felt that even though Bobby, myself and Jerry didn't play, just us being at the club give everybody a lift, which is what the manager's job is, to buy the players in, to stimulate the side to go and play better football. But I think that did give us a better all-round squad by just being there, although we never played.
So with the season over and preparations for the 100th FA Cup final v Spurs could get underway, what do you recall of those preparations and sort of the week leading up to the final?
The leading up to it, I had a pelvic problem just after that, just before the cup final, which is something that I'd got in America, which was purely through playing on AstroTurf. And my pelvic bones, one of them had worn, and rest was the only thing for it. And I'm the worst in the world for resting. And I think I played against Birmingham and I came off. I was feeling it bad. And then he rested me for a couple, and then I came back and then I was okay. But leading up to the final was tremendous. Everybody was, the whole city. The one thing as well that I remember when I first went to City, when we were walking round the back of the kebabs, when we were walking to the training ground, I could remember we were playing a game one night, and as I'm walking along, there's two old ladies with two shopping baskets, but they must be in their 70s, walking along, and I don't know if we surprised them walking past them, but they just turned around quickly and said, "Now you better win tonight." And I'm thinking, how would old ladies think, even have that in their mind, that was, I'd obviously had the same sort of feeling with the people in Blackpool, the Lancashire people. That's what they're like. Yeah. You know, it's in the games inbred in them, you know. Absolutely. And as much as, no matter where they were, they probably didn't know us from Adam, but they knew we were footballers and they knew there was a game that night. And that's the thing that, you know, when you're playing, that old lady came into my mind in games that I played in, and thinking, you can't let her down.
Oh, fantastic. So it was the FA Cup's centenary final season. How was Tommy Hutchison feeling inside leading up to that game? You'd obviously earned the right to be there, but was it a little bit of a pinch yourself moment at that stage of your career, Tommy?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And again, it was one of those games where I thought, I'd played at Wembley for Scotland. I came on as sub against England in a 5-1 defeat. But the one thing I did remember was that the size of the place. And I tried to speak to one or two of the younger boys that, you know, when you're knocking a long ball, you need to knock it that bit further rather than just thinking it's going to get there. It won't get there. And I was probably more worried about how they were going to play than how I was going to play.
So with the match 30 minutes old, when the oldest player on this display sends a bullet header past the Spurs keeper from Ray Ranson's cross, if you close your eyes now, Tom, can you still hear that roar from the Wembley crowd?
Oh, without a doubt. And again, I could remember, I think it was Kevin Reeve just laid it back to Ray Ranson, and something we'd worked on in training as well. Not me getting on the end of it, it would probably be Kevin Reeves getting on the end of it, or Dennis Stewart. But I just managed to get across the first defender, and it went straight in the top corner.
Fantastic. I'm sure it's been said a million times. You've heard it a million times. You were so close to being our folklore Wembley hero, but fate deemed that a different story lay ahead for Tommy Hutchison that afternoon. What did John Bonds and the lads say to you afterwards? And did you feel a bit like we'd missed our chance in that first game?
No, not really. I didn't think we'd missed our chance. I just thought, well, we're going to have to do it again. No, nothing was ever. I felt the one I felt sorry for was Joe Corrigan, because he was absolutely magnificent that day. And when I moved from the wall to go round the back, I was only supposed to do that on the other side of the park. We'd practiced that where I come off the wall, because we knew he was going to play to the side and try and beat the wall on the outside. And I get there I read it too well. I get there too early and it hits my right shoulder and goes past Joe. Yeah. Which I shouldn't have been there.
What's done is done, as they say.
Yeah.
A pulsating replay followed, which unfortunately saw City leave Wembley empty-handed after Spurs take the cup. We know 3-2. But how do you look back now at those two Wembley finals? How's the memories of them now?
The one good thing about it for me was that we were ahead in the second game as well. You know, we'd got ahead. I think Steve McKenzie missed a chance in the first game. Could have made it 2-0, and then they scored. But I think on the whole, we did our chances, and it just wasn't to be.
So 28 appearances the following campaign sees your spell at City start to wind down, and a move to Hong Kong follows. How did that move come about, or was it something that you'd already been in your long-term thinking prior to joining City? Because was it originally a 2-year contract?
Yeah, I had a 2-year contract, and somebody come again. I think the cup final caused it, in the sense that the team needed rebuilding, and players like myself, maybe Tommy Booth, Jerry Gow, were maybe coming to the end of it if you're going to go for a full season again. And I think that sort of made up my mind. And again, the money made the mind up as well, because in those days, obviously, we were not as rich as what they are nowadays. And it was a chance of maybe making a bit of money at my age as well. And again, I was going to Ron Wiley, who I'd had at Coventry. So I knew whatever setup was in Hong Kong was going to be good, or he wouldn't have taken me there. Plus the fact is, he knew what type of player I was, that I wouldn't go out there. I was on a holiday.
Yes.
You know, I'd go out to do the business and do as well as I could for them. And then, and the one thing John Bond says to me, because I was swilling whether to go or not, and he says, look, wherever I am when you come back, I'll give you a job. So it gave me a clear mind to go.
Well, in the summer of 1981, City boss John Bond says in his pre-season notes, Tommy Hutchison is one player whose presence in the team gives me perhaps the most satisfaction than anyone else. Hutch is a highly skilled entertainer who has thrilled thousands over the years. I mean, high praise from a manager you appeared under on 3 separate occasions. So how do you recall John Bond and the part he played in your career?
I wish I had gone to him a lot earlier. He's told me that himself. He says, if I had you when you were younger, I'd have made you a better player, without a doubt. And I think he would have, because the one thing that the boss always wanted was he loved quality. He loved slick football and the right things done, but he wanted hard work. You had to work hard. And that was, for me, was always, that's a given anyhow. Nobody should have to tell you need to work hard. So I think and maybe even if I'd have had him at Norwich, you know, if I'd have gone to Norwich when I was maybe just a couple of years younger as well. But he did everything for me. I made probably the best part of my career with him after I'd left my Coventry, because I thought with Joe Mercer and with Gordon Milne and Ron Wiley, I had a great time there. Good managers and great fans. And again, there was a little bit of controversy when I left Coventry to go to Man City, is that when I went, as I said to you about going to Ali Hinton, that as a big club, and I always wanted to play for a big club, that the fans took it wrong, that I didn't think that Coventry was a big club.
Oh, yeah.
But that wasn't how I meant it. I meant it that, well, the records show you what one's a big club, but it was a case of I'd done everything I could for Coventry City and appreciated it. And I got player of the century when I was at Coventry. So I think I didn't let anybody down at any of the clubs I was at.
That's for sure. So looking back now, Tommy, how would you describe, or how would you look back on your spell as a Manchester City player?
Too short. Too short. I wish I'd have been there. I wish I'd been there when I was 25, not 35.
And that's exactly the comment you get from most City fans when you spoke about wish we had him
earlier.
earlier.
And the other good thing about the club is that still, like say the Mike Summerbays, the Colin Bells, they all still came about the club.
Yeah.
You know, they were all about the dressing room, and on some match days you would see them about, and you're thinking that's true. You know, that's what you call it. That's what a big club should be. You know, and I was just glad to be part of it for the short time that I was there.
So what's your opinion of the modern day Man City side? Do you get to watch them much when they're on the TV?
I like to watch them after they've won. I didn't watch the game Saturday. And I think I've got my two sons, one's a Liverpool supporter and one's a Man City supporter. So they have a bit of a clash now and again. And the only reason that David, who's the youngest one, he's a Liverpool supporter, was that when Kenny Dalglish had his testimonial, he asked me to go up and play golf in one of his tournaments for his testimonial. And David came up and had his picture taken with him. And ever since then, Kenny was his only hero and Liverpool was his team. Even, I think it was about 3 years ago, he paid £500 to go and play at Liverpool. You know, at the end of the season, they have games where you can go and you can pay money to play. I've done it at Coventry. And then you get a tour of the ground and everything. And he went and played and he scored a hat-trick. So he was well pleased.
Money well spent then.
Yeah, but the Man City boy and the grandson, they're both City mad. I've had them up to the games.
Yeah, fantastic. So what's Tommy Hutchison of 2022 up to?
I'm retired. I'm up in Scotland and I play a bit of golf. I've got a static home down near the sea down at Shell Bay in Fife. And we go down there at the weekends. And it's been a bit difficult because normally my three kids are all in England. They normally come up at certain times and they go down and use the van. But we've not been able to see them, obviously, with the COVID thing.
Yeah.
But they were up last week, so hopefully that's the start of them coming back up here again. But no, I keep tabs on all my teams and hope everything goes well.
So I've got a couple of sort of quick fire questions for you. Tommy, answer them as short or as long as you like. So it's Man City favourites from your time there. So favourite teammate?
Jerry Gow.
Favourite match?
I think my first game, my debut game, right, where we needed to win.
And what about a favourite memory, Tom? It doesn't have to be from a game. It could be something that happened at an away day or in training, something that jumps out to you, a City memory.
One of the big thing is that the City Blues, you used to have to go every now and again, 2 or 3 players would have to go on a Sunday and they would ask us questions. You know, you'd go on the stage and down at the club and they'd ask questions to us and everything. And it was amazing how knowledgeable they were about the club, you know, and that hit me for, you know, young kids coming through, is that you can see why you have to be a good role model for kids coming up, because it's such a big club, you can't afford to let them down.
Now, I'm sure I've seen a picture somewhere, Tommy, of yourself, Jerry Gow, Bobby McDonald, at maybe one of these Junior Blues events where you're pushing pushchairs down the high street, racing them through or something like that. I'm sure I've come across. I'll have to find it and send you across. But yeah, I don't think you'll get that too much in the modern day game now, would you? Kevin De Bruyne pushing.
No, I don't think so.
Across there. So, favourite current City player, one you like to watch?
I find that quite difficult because you go for forwards and then you look at defenders and you look at the goalkeepers.
Yeah.
And
see, I thought you might have said Kevin De Bruyne from what you were saying earlier about assists.
Yeah.
Set the goals up.
Yeah, Kevin would be the one I'd say. Yeah, Kevin, because again, he's a typical he puts me in the same vein as Colin Bell in that just gets on with the job.
Sure, yeah.
Never in trouble with referees, which is a good thing about the majority of the players for Man City. And when they just get up, get on with it, and they get their injuries, they don't moan about it, they just get up. And Kevin's been brilliant in that sense. He come back and there was one or two, oh, is that him for it? He's not as good as he's not as sharp as he was. I think some people just need to be injured for a while and then try and come back at the speed the game is now compared to what I was even playing at. The speed is a big thing that's the difference.
No, 100% agree. And I don't think they get as much credit as a club for that. You know, they're not moaning because there's plenty of other clubs.
No, that's the one pleasing thing.
So true or false, with a bit quirky, these ones. So true or false, Steve McKenzie scored the greatest FA Cup goal of the 1980s.
No. False.
No. I was hoping you'd say it was true.
No, I scored it.
Yeah. Brilliant. City will win the 2020 Champions League.
Yes.
2022, sorry, I meant this season.
2022. Yes, I think they will. And
the final one, Tommy Hutchison played for both Manchester City and Manchester United.
Yes, true.
True. But they were end of season games, Tommy, were they? Right.
What it was is I haven't played in Hong Kong. I was out in Hong Kong guesting for a testimonial for one of the lads. And while I was there, Big Ron came out to play the local side. And it was the last year of the home internationals. And he says to me, would you fancy coming to Australia? Because we're short of players. Brian Robson, Lou McCarry, can't remember the goalkeeper. He didn't turn up until late. There was a few of them couldn't make it. So he asked me, Frank Worthington and Barnesy, if we would come out and play. So we went out and played. We played, I think it was Sparky's first game, in fact, for Man United. And we played Nottingham Forest, Juventus, and the national side. So we played the 3 games. And when it comes up now, because obviously I get it for Man United fans, oh, you're a blue, you're a blue. And obviously you're a typical Man United fan because you don't know the history of the club, that I actually played for them. And by the way, I wore the number 7 jersey because I could remember when I got it. Brownie was the coach. He gave us it. He says, yeah, your numbers. I says, I hope they don't think I'm going to be Pop Robson running up and down this.
Well, that's about Man United anyway, for sure. Tommy, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and sharing your tales of blue. From everyone on the Man City Matchworn Shirts page, we wish you all the very best.
Cheers, Bob. Thanks very much.